Hughley. Hugh. D.L. Hughley has made the news along with George Clooney. All right. So, for those of you that are not familiar, George Clooney wrote an op-ed that basically criticized and said that Biden should drop out of the race. Long story short, should drop out of the race because he has no ability to win. He looks old and he looked bad on the debate stage. Well, that was about a week and a half ago, maybe a week ago. But recently, D.L. Hughley, who I have never, ever been a fan of when it comes to politics and him being a liberal and what it is that he stands for from a political perspective. Now, that does not mean that he's a bad person because I actually, and this is how you know that I'm objective, I actually was on D.L. Hughley's side when it came to what he was dealing with Monique. What he was dealing with when it came to Monique. Monique, mean, nasty, ugly-spirited, came after D.L. Hughley, his family. And I actually, unfortunately, I didn't feel good about it, but I did. I stood 10 toes down and I said, listen, objectively, listening to this thing because it was the hottest thing that was happening at the moment, listening to this conversation, D.L. Hughley is right and Monique is wrong. But when it comes to his ability to be able to pick from a political perspective and his stance and continuing to stand with the Democratic Party and not being objective and criticizing and holding accountable the people that he aligns with, he's wrong. He's off. He's just as wrong, if not worse, than Amanda Seals. I think Amanda Seals is horrible, but D.L. Hughley could quite possibly be up there in the running of the worst people when it comes to their political takes. The only other person that I've seen that I don't see happening no more is T.I. You know what I'm saying? From politics. But this is D.L. Hughley criticizing Clooney after he wrote the op-ed on behalf of Biden. Check it out. Or an interview.
Day by day, there's a bigger reaction across the country about whether or not Biden should be on the presidential ticket. Now Hollywood is weighing in. As we mentioned, George Clooney was urging the party to move on from Biden after the debate, writing in the New York Times, quote, "Our party leaders need to stop telling us that 50 million people didn't see what we just saw. We're also terrified by the prospect of a second Trump term that we've opted to ignore every warning sign."
Whether you like this or not, President Biden has had the legislative agenda that would rival FDR. And so I think that while...
Really, DL? Is this what we doing here in the United States of America? We lying? We lying out here in these streets? Come on, man. Stop, bro. Stop. But we going to let them rock. We going to observe this.
People have the right to voice their opinion. They should be rooted in some level of sanity. If you look at where, for instance, George W. Bush and John Kerry were at this time in their race in June and July of that year, Kerry was 7 points ahead of him. If you look at where Barack Obama and Mitt Romney were in their race, October 16th, 2.5 weeks before that election, Romney was 4 points ahead of Obama. So, and the thing that those two people have in common is the power of the incumbency. So you have openly people advocating for.
Let me tell you something. He's so wrong, he couldn't be more wrong. One of the things I believe that got the second Bush elected was the fact that we had what they would call a terrorist attack on 9/11. The same day that Fabulous and Jay-Z dropped their albums. I was there. I remember. Jay-Z dropped the album. That was a classic. Fabulous dropped his first album. That was a classic, in my opinion. And I believe that they leveraged, I'm not going to speak on what I believe really happened on 9/11 because I don't believe everything that I've seen on the news. But they leveraged the fear of the American people and the fact that George Bush was staunch when it came to his stance on terrorism and terrorist attacks, even though they never found any weapons of mass destruction. We left a whole bunch of equipment overseas. We made sure that we got every single opportunity from a business perspective in order to be able to leverage that oil and stuff like that. So, neither here nor there. I'm not going to deep dive into my theories on that because I've done extensive research. However, just to speak to D.L. Hughley's point, they leveraged war and fear and terrorism and George Bush's stance when he got on camera And he said that we will not stand for terrorism and we're going to go after them. And Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden and all of these people. And they leveraged the fear of American people to ultimately get him into office again and get reelected when he was absolutely one of the worst presidents of our time. So a lot of people are not understanding of this. They don't know the full context. Anybody can say anything. But the reality is that it took a major event, a major life event to bring the people together in unity to ultimately elect them to continue to do the thing that was worse for America. We were going through the middle of a recession that got Obama elected in 2008 based off of hope. And he didn't get as much done as he said that he was going to get, even though he had legislative branches, a Democratic majority in the legislative branches, but he didn't get it done. And so as people were coming out of it, they had experience, and this is the Obama campaign for the second term, as people were coming out of it, they had seen a little bit of the recovery from the economy after they had suffered so bad when they got him in office in the first place. The context matters, y'all.
For a president to give up the power of the bully pulpit and the incumbency months before a presidential election, which is ridiculous. Historically, no president has ever gave up incumbency. No party has ever gave up the incumbency of the president and won the election. It's just never happened.
Not gonna win anyway.
What I found, there was an interesting point, and I hear you in the historical references. It gives great context to understand how these numbers can shift. But there was a point in this op-ed, and when he talks about how, and I'll read it here, he's talking about how there was new and upsetting information. He talks about, well, no, we all think Republicans should abandon their nominee now that he's been convicted of 34 felonies. And so I just wonder, from the perspective of the timing aspect of it, did you see anything with respect to President Biden and the power of the incumbency that would give you the same level of concern about Republicans trying to replace their nominee because of felony convictions and Biden's 90 minutes?
I think that I interviewed the president on May 29th, a few weeks before the debate at the White House and on Air Force One. Now, obviously, he's an older man. Obviously, there's no disputing that. But let's be clear. The Democrats should be focusing on what's at stake in terms of what they're running against. The one thing that I didn't hear George Clooney mention was Project 2025. And I think
Jesus Christ. How many times are we going to have to say this, that this fear tactic, and as intelligent as D.L. Hughley tried to make himself out to be, we know that has nothing to do with Trump whatsoever. At all. Has nothing to do with Trump whatsoever. That whole thing is a bunch of far-right Republicans that are trying to leverage the visibility that comes with being a Make America Great Again advocate and trying to use that to continue to energize what it is that they're doing and then ultimately get more donations into what they got going on. They're using it for visibility, but Trump has already said that he's not a part of it. He's denounced it. He's never been a part of it. There's nothing that has to do with him whatsoever. And so they reach and they ultimately go for straws that have nothing to do with what the Trump campaign is talking about whatsoever. These celebrities, man, y'all got to stop following these people.
I think we have a decidedly different vantage point. If you look at who Project 2025 affects the most, it is communities of color.
Here we go.
It is the people who have less than. Now, if you're a straight white male in this country, you could be disappointed in the election, but it wouldn't have disastrous results. I think that's decidedly a different thing for communities of color. And I think that the vantage point they speak from, I don't think that he speaks for the people that I speak. I speak to millions of people every day on my radio show. And that's the sentiment I hear that is
which is mid as hell, but neither here nor there.
Kind of bantered around. And so I just think the one thing I can say for sure is the reticence that a lot of young black men have with the Democratic Party is the cowardice at every turn, the hand wringing, the fecklessness, and they exhibited it all the time. And it's just a lot to take.
You know, I'm a fan of your show and listen to it all the time, and I'm
Cap.
A little bit more about what you're hearing on that idea of the cowardice, because one of the criticisms I often hear is Democrats eat their own, that there's a circular firing squad,
Absolutely.
that the attempt to have a moral high ground is to their detriment. And yet, there is something to be said about having a moral compass, about having the high ground, and about calling out wrong wherever it may be. But tell me about what you're hearing from people about how they view these last couple weeks.
Well, here's the thing. LBJ had the moral compass. He left. Richard Nixon became president, and that, for Black people, became the onslaught of mass incarceration and the war on drugs. It had disastrous consequences for Black people. When Donald Trump won, it had disastrous consequences for Black people.
Where? Hey, hold on. Come on, y'all. The reaching is Stretch Armstrong long. The reach here is Stretch Armstrong long. Yo, I don't know anybody, even if you don't like Donald Trump, that can say to themselves, hey, listen, from 2016 through 2020, we suffered as a black conglomerate. I don't know anybody, not one person can sit here and tell me that as a result of the policies that was implemented, that Biden then continued in a lot of instances into his presidency, but as a result of the policies that was implemented through Trump, that they suffered from 2016 through 2020. Man, we were rolling. Bro, I made so much money. I prospered. I was blessed. I built things that I never built before. I ran up bags. We got to places and things and opportunities. And man, it was so much money that was flowing in 2016 through 2020. I don't know one Black person will admit and say, I suffered from 2016 through 2020. Stop.
If you look at who suffered the most under those policies, if you look at his COVID reaction, who died the most? So this, for me, is not a whimsical conversation. For me, it's not a conversation about what is uncomfortable.
What policies?
It is what is necessary. Look at Project 2025 and tell me for sure. I watched the mass media, and no one has interviewed anybody seriously with the fervor about Biden's age that they do about Project 2025. No one. And who does it affect? If they disband or absolve the Department of Education, who does it affect primarily? Environmental rollbacks, who does it affect primarily?
This is
all the things that are given. If they DEI or if they Black history, who does it affect?
DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Listen, we should have abolished DEI along with affirmative action a long time ago. Don't you know that they also leveraging feminism in order to identify themselves as a minority or a person that is at odds with the whole establishment? The only people that are affected from these policies are white men, because you're considered a double minority if you're a woman and you're a woman of color, not even a Black woman specifically. We don't even know what the NAACP do anymore outside of shield for Democrats. We don't even know. Hey, when the last time y'all seen the NAACP do anything for Black people whatsoever? And now they say people of color. What is people of color? Don't y'all know that we all people of color? Literally, this whole country is a melting pot. The whole country is a melting pot now.
Because the truth of the matter is, in 2020, it was the Black and brown people that fired Donald Trump.
People. There we go.
More white people voted for him in 2020 than voted for him in 2016. Black and brown people fired him. And as a result of this, we have these draconian measures in Project 2025. And more, rather than Democrats focusing on that, they're focusing on the age of a man. By the time this is over, one thing is for certain, Joe Biden will be older. And Project 2025 will still be the platform that is running behind all
this. Is so dumb.
You know, this is the one.
This ain't even rooted in honesty. This is foolishness. Bro.
Criticisms that people have not gone after what are the obvious Achilles heels of one's opponent. And you mentioned that you also interviewed Vice President Harris, I believe, about a month ago as well. And I do want to get your take, given, you know, Project 2025 has more than a few dog whistles, shall we say. And there's also.
I don't even want to keep watching this because this is all foolishness. They spewing something that's not even endorsed by the potential president of the United States of America at all. He don't got nothing to do with this man. Who is this shield? This is what I'm saying. This is being used as false information to try to get y'all scared. And most people don't even know what it is. I read it. I broke it down literally on the Millionaire Morning Show. Also broke down the person at I'm gonna try to get the guy on here. I'm gonna work my hardest to try to get the guy on here and interview him. I had some other interviews lined up, but they wound up scaring out. I don't want to say who they are, but they wind up chickening out as a result of it. But
overt statements that
Not
are now
dog
being
whistles.
made. I said more than overt dog whistles, I'm saying, in terms of thinking about it. And there are also moments when people are using race and having those discussions to criticize the Vice President of the United States. And I want to get your take on something that she's recently been facing, for quite some time, but especially now that she's being named as possibly someone to top a ticket. Listen to what the former Trump official, Sebastian Gorka, had the nerve to say about her.
She's a DEI hire, right? She's a woman. She's colored, therefore she's got to be good. Yeah. And at least her brain doesn't literally freeze in mid-sentence.
Now, I don't know if you can see who's on that screen, but one of them on the right, I believe, is Matt Whitaker, who is the former acting attorney general of the United States, with that smile on his face. What do you make of these attacks?
It's an interesting thing. 17 senators gone on to become president. She was one of them. She's one of those, vice president. Very few people. She's been an attorney general of the largest, most populous, most wealthy state in the country.
Horrible person.
There is this notion more.
Listen, I dislike Kamala Harris probably more than I dislike Hillary Clinton. I dislike Kamala Harris more than I dislike Hillary Clinton. Emails and all. I absolutely, positively think that this woman is one of the fakest hot sauce in a person all. Hot sauce in a person all. Listen, if you put a gun to my head and you said you got two different people to choose between, Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton, I would say pull the trigger, big dog. Take me out. Take me out. Just take me out. If you put a gun to my head and said Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton, just pull the trigger, because I'm not choosing between the two. That's how much I don't think that she makes sense in any capacity. She has failed miserably in her role as the border czar and as the person that is supposed to be the Vice President of the United States of America, and none of that could be any more on display, but then her foolishness on Drew Barrymore's show, or her traveling to these African countries to advocate for something that they didn't want as far as this alphabet community nonsense. Pull the trigger. Listen, just take me out. If I got to live through that, hey, family, y'all ready to all just go? We just going to all go to the upper room. Just take me out. Take me out. Throw away the key. Take me out, bro.
America has been more damaged by GCI than DEI. The greedy, corrupt, incompetent white men have caused.
Now it's the white men again. Now it's white men. Look, get this dude off my screen. Can't even believe that I defended him against Monique.